Welcome to this week's episode of Food Bites. Special guest here today, and we all know about Heeman's Farms. I mean, it's vast. I was so excited at the food bank when we built our greenhouse, and then I see a picture like this, and I realize just how far in advanced Heeman's Farms it is with all the things that it's done. It's been around for 61 years. I think it has something like 300 acres or something of land that it's worked on during that time. It's been awesome. And one of our good friends and somebody I really appreciate is Will Heeman. Now, Will is kind of the chief daymaker there. We'll talk about that in a sec. And we'll talk about this picture too. That is one. That is
I love
one.
that picture.
Yeah, that is one awesome picture. But here is Will. Who is that with you there, Will?
That's my son Daxton. So actually, he's a little bit older than we're there, but we're flying out of the London airport to go out see some greenhouses in the West Coast in that photo. But he's a little bit bigger, and I have another one now too, Ellery, who is about as big as he is in that photo. So
Yeah.
that they keep me youthful and keep me running. Anyways, one of the two.
Yeah. Well, I have a number of pictures of you both here and down at the food bank, but that one is my favorite. It's just perfect. So obviously you've got a great family there, and you're part of a family institution. I mean, you've been around. Did I have that right? Is it 60 or so
Yeah.
years? Yeah.
Yeah, last year was 60 years, so your math is great.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was just as excited as you when you guys were able to put up that greenhouse. Getting a greenhouse in the city is no small feat. So kudos to you guys for that. And we definitely did not start out with as many as you showed in that photo. So everything starts from humble beginnings, and Heeman's is no exception.
Yeah. Well, we also gave out a number of little greenhouses around the community to different community organizations, but we got one on Saturday and brought it home here to the house. And so I set it up in the driveway. We'll take it back to the food bank. But Jane has the artist tour that's coming by here in a couple of weeks. So her studio wasn't quite big enough. So we borrowed one of those greenhouses and put it up. And it took us, an hour and a half. No
Yeah.
big deal. But I thought of how long it took us to build our big one at the food bank. And then also, then we were talking about it yesterday, just the vast amount of greenhouse space you have at Heeman's is amazing.
My grandmother had grown up, well, both of them had grown up in the Netherlands. So, usually it's dairy or greenhouses that Dutch immigrants had put up. And she had grown up on a greenhouse in Olsmeer, which is where the flower clock is. And so um, it was a carnation farm before the war. And she had always been pestering my grandfather, we should put up a greenhouse. And my grandfather's like, I'm a diesel mechanic. I don't know anything about greenhouses, but obviously here we are today. So she was very persuasive, you could say.
Well, it's such a, I mean, so many people know about humans, and you have such a great net presence, digital presence in the community as well. You do a great job curating all that stuff. But I think it's about 300 acres you have. I've been out there a few times, but how much of that space is greenhouse space?
We have under 200,000 square feet. It's funny when you're talking about greenhouses. As you saw in that photo before, we have a lot of what are ground to ground, similar to what you guys have at the food bank, and which is a little bit unconventional for maybe like if you were to say you're going to build it from scratch and set up. But as you can see, even the main spaces where people might be familiar with, you've got some that are running north south, some that are running east west.
Yeah.
We just had done a renovation to kind of get them some of the ranges a little bit taller to be more standardized. But when we first got started, money was tight. Banks wouldn't lend, to some immigrants who were getting started, and so we had built it one piece at a time, and it got to that point. But the
And
bank,
what do you grow all together? You don't have to mention everything, but
oh
whatever.
my goodness. So, in a nutshell, Heeman's we grow more than 3,000 different types of annuals, veggies, herbs, and houseplants. If you were to consider all the different varieties, and that's for the greenhouse side. But then obviously we have all the field crops that are going into the berry side of the operation. So we have a generous amount of land to try to do crop rotation on because our goal is to not grow strawberries on the same patch of ground for 7 years after we've grown it. So we'll
Yeah.
have strawberries into a piece for 2 to 3 years, and then we try to rotate off. And by doing that, it allows us to let the land go fallow or let it have a break from anything. You know, whether it's traditional corn and beans and wheat, you want to make sure you have a rotation because I always tell people plants are like people at a buffet. If you have too many of the same people, then you're going to run out of shrimp or you're going to run out of that salad. So we would like to have that nice generous rotation with it. But we will be doing strawberries, we'll be doing raspberries, corn, beans, and wheat. Um, and then we also at times have had like sweet corn or sweet peas that we would be doing for like processing. But then we also work bees, so we have more over 100 beehives that will be around there, so, and that's where we get our honey for like the mead and for the honey that you might find at Heeman. So if you're out and about and you're looking around, we have those bees that are present in the greenhouses. Chances are that they're ours, and then we also have our hard cidery and meadery, which I had just alluded to. So we're actually taking some of the byproducts of like our strawberries and our raspberries and our honey, but then also using other local ingredients to make
Mhm.
honey or to make mead and cider. So it's kind of neat because we're able to find a home for lots of different things and do what I guess you'd say like value add products like to be uh, yeah, finding secondary uses for
Yeah.
things for those fresh products, and then obviously we like to support the food bank with that as well, with making sure that the clients get fresh tastes of strawberries and raspberries and different things, so
Yeah.
that nothing can go to waste. The goal is nothing ever goes to waste. You know, that
No.
would be the perfect solution, right?
Yeah. You folks are so popular at the food bank. I mean, I was there. It was a while ago. I remember. I think it was last year at some point. But I was at the front, and somebody came in and said, "They're here. They're here. Heeman's is here." So we went to the back. I even took some video of it. And here you came with your truck, dropping off all of these strawberries. And but you folks, you know your business so well. You've been around a long time. You're a family operation. It's very organic and natural. It's very tech driven as well, which is awesome. But I think you've been so great to the food bank. I mean, when one of your family volunteers with us at the front, she has for a while, and she keeps reminding us of just what all you folks accomplish out there. But it's just been so great what you've done for the food bank over the years. But I'm sure that you've helped other organizations as well. Are you free to name some of those?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously are very proud of the support that we give to the food bank. I think it's a very logical and natural place for any farm organization to be supporting because if we can go direct to the consumer, which is
Yeah.
frankly what Heeman's does as a retail farm, where we're inviting people onto our farm, I definitely firmly believe that people who are clients of the food bank are just at a moment in their life, and that doesn't mean that they're not entitled to having fresh produce as part of that mix. And we think that that they're at that one point, but they'll be back on their feet, and maybe afterwards they'll continue to be looking for that local produce connection. But in addition to that, we sup- I, we support a number of different organizations.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and
there's
you
I
also
think
do through
there was
the food bank. Will, like that stuff goes out to
yeah.
30 other different organizations as well.
It's great. Our Gary usually does the berry deliveries to the food bank, and he always enjoys doing that one and to my sister's place as well.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys are very efficient, in which we appreciate because if we can drop off the produce there, then you guys have an amazing network to be able to then spread them further into the community, whether that's through the Men's Mission or my sister's place or Salvation Army or any other place that I don't even appreciate that they get to.
Mhm.
But we also work closely with a number of organizations. I was looking at the list here. We had last year we touched more than like 70 different donations
Amazing.
to
Yeah.
this cause or that. But I just got a donation request the other day from a local church group that has a garden plot that they specifically grow
Hmm.
food for the food bank to go in. But we, most recently we're coming up next month. We have the mental health breakfast, the Breakfast of Champions with St. Joe's, which involved with as well. So we, proud to be a supporter of that with
Hmm.
supporting mental health and working with Parkwood and St. Joe's and even the hospital at St. Mary's and the community center in Thorndale. There's a number of I think our family is just as proud of our like smaller donations and smaller impacts
Hmm.
because frankly sometimes the number of zeros on the end of like your commitment doesn't always like relate
Yeah.
to the impact that it has on those people. We have I just got a thank you card on the weekend from a teacher at Chippewa Public School. We had donated some stuff for them to start growing plants in their school, and the handwritten cards from the kids. I mean, you can definitely see that connection. So that's always great. And I think that it's always perfect, much like you guys have. Um, I think we believe in like really growing a community, and you always believe that your community is what you. I think community is like a plant. You get into it what you put into it, right? So if you
Hmm.
nurture it, you tend to it, you care for it, then it's going to thrive. And if you just put it in a corner and just assume it's going to be good with whatever it gets, and it's got to fend for itself, it doesn't always work out. So.
Yeah. And just yesterday, you were doing something for the food bank. What was that?
Oh yeah, we so it is the gardening season definitely feels like it, and any good gardener needs to have their proper tools. So we had brought in a tool sharpening service, uh, RW sharpening, and we had made a unique deal with them because that was the first time that they'd ever done that. But where we just set them up in our space and allowed people, anyone could drop in, bring their tools, drop them off, and they could have them sharpened by donation. So whatever the amount was right for them, the donations would go to the food bank, and so then people could have a nice sharpened tool to be able to really make the most of the garden season, and then we could obviously raise a little bit of awareness and have that box in there, and maybe the donations that we collect would be a little bit more than if people were just sharpening the tools, but all proceeds going to the food bank again to just be able to kick off the season. It was something that's new for us, but I doubt that's going to be the last time we do it. It's pretty popular. We had to put up the sold out because Susie had mountains of tools everywhere. She's like, okay, I won't be able to get these done by the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great to see the enthusiasm for that kind of event. There was people who were bringing checks, and even people brought food. We were like, we did not plan for that. We're like, all right, we have to have a spot as well to have the food, so we're gonna run that over to you guys shortly this week at the food bank.
Yeah. One of the challenges that food banks go on across the country, Jane and I just this last week were on a call with all the larger food banks of Ontario, is that, we've been around now, we're in our 39th year, but often the success of something is measured by weight. That's the way that food banks initially operated for decades. And you would go and say, well, we got this much more than last year or less or whatever it is. But that was how people measured the success of it. And so this last food drive is a great example. We just as many people gave, but the poundage was down just a bit from last year.
Right.
Although people gave just as much, it was the inflationary costs of the food that they were giving that spelled that difference. But Jane and I were sitting around afterwards, after we talked to the media, and say, we need to develop a different set of metrics around that. Because, it was 10 years ago, people would come to us and say, we really want to drop off fresh food for the food bank. But if we leave it at a grocery store in the bin, we don't know when you're going to pick it up or at a fire hall, or what, which it's a very legitimate point. So some people moved to purchasing online, so that way we could just get the food directly. But back then, 10 years ago, we were at 22% was fresh. Now
Yeah.
it's 56. So of the food that we're giving out, 56% is fresh and is donated that way. So, when you give somebody Heeman strawberries, or let's say we give out tomatoes or lettuce or whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's a different thing. If you measured it by weight, it kind of puts it in line with everything else. But when you look at the nutritional side of things, right, and especially stuff that you grow yourself, it's so fresh. It comes straight off the field and straight out to the clients at the food bank or the agencies that we feed.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And there are some people, when we built the greenhouse, said, it's a lot of energy and things like that to grow, and there's not a lot of poundage that comes out of it. And to some degree, that might be right. But what it speaks to for the clients is that they're that important that
Yeah.
we're willing to give them the best nutrition that we can. So we're in the process of designing better metrics around that so that people can understand better that their donation is not just measured so much by weight anymore, but by the very quality of the food itself. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think that's the right way for us to go? Do you have
Oh
any
yeah.
suggestions?
Yeah, no, when you were talking about that, I feel like it's like many things where you have to really change the metrics that you're being judged upon because um, that metric that you were referring to doesn't speak to the quality of it. Like as a person who's giving that, you feel great if there's a little bit of plot value. But I think when we're making those donations, you always want to think, is what I'm putting in the bag what I would want to be serving to my own family? And
Yeah,
there's a level of pride in being able to um, know that the clients that are receiving that feel worthy, feel like that they're receiving something that they'd be, if they had the means that they'd actually go out to the grocery store and purchase. And for me, when we were first getting started, one of the things that you had alluded to before was the online presence, and it was something that was really important to me because um, in any business, you're always concerned. Like there was always this buzzword about your ROI, your return on investment, and we choose to judge our metric more on ROR, which is return on relationship.
yeah,
Because
that's
if you're just
important.
transactional of like a one-to-one, like can I get you to buy a Bandsy Bowl today, and then forget you later, or like or re-earn that later, like your relationship is far more important. Building the connection is far more important over the lifetime of that, and that's where I think for you guys, it's really. I know, I heard you had the same number of people giving, which I thought was fantastic. If you're talking about going into harder times, that's great,
Yeah,
and being able to focus on some of that and really focusing on the quality of what you're able to provide. Now I know at the end of the day, if the demand is going up, you still have to find a way to bridge that. But
yeah,
focusing on building relationships that are deeper, building on those things, I think is always more important because it goes back to our conversation around like community
yeah,
and growing that. And if you're just looking at like, well, did we do the same as we did last time, and you're always chasing that, then you start chasing a number which when you sit back and you're like, is that number really what
yeah,
this is about? Is this what we really want to be judging ourselves on? Because I feel strongly that, if you just wanted to go in and say, what is the heaviest food that I could
mm,
possibly purchase, and I'll just buy it to the hilt, then that doesn't really, at the end of the day, deliver what clients are really needing, and
yeah,
those agencies are really needing. So, it I think there's a lot of symmetry in that we're trying to judge on the relationship, because for us as a business, especially one that not ever, there's a level of passion, which is excellent, a passion for local food, a passion for gardening or growing your own.
yeah,
And we're there to fill the void because there's a lack of knowledge. And so it's like, teach
exactly.
me,
Yeah,
show me, building that relationship before, and then also making the transaction, which is great. But then committing to being there afterwards to support you as you go on.
yeah,
I think for you guys, I know through our conversations that we've had offline, in that moment, you want to make sure you can get that person who's coming into the food bank the calories that they need, the food that they need in that
yeah,
moment. But it's looking at it like, how can we break this cycle so
yeah.
that they're not a client today? You're the exact opposite in that I want you to be a client for life. You want them to be a client for today, and then get on to having a better life so that they can be,
Self-sufficiency. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
which I think is beautiful in a way that like we're both approaching it a similar approach, but with ultimately a different end result that we're targeting.
Well, I wouldn't mind talking to you sometimes about those metrics because you got so much you can teach me on that because you've been at it so long. But I did want to tell you that we have some good friends that had gone to a big water theme park in Niagara Falls with their family. They have a large family, and they just, they had a great time. They loved it. And then they went out to Heeman's, is a family. And it was totally different, right? They went down to this place and they swam and they did all that stuff. But after coming to Heeman's, now they want a greenhouse. They want to start putting a raised bed. These are the kids. They're all
Yeah.
pressing their parents because they're learning about some of this stuff in school and stuff as well. And it seems to me, because I've been there many times, even with our kids from Sudan, they were just so
Yeah.
amazed at it. But it's a wonderful playground and learning ground for families and for kids. And I know that the title that you kind of have, I think at Heeman's, if I remember from last year, is like chief daymaker or head daymaker.
Yeah.
Tell me what a
Yeah.
daymaker is.
Um, when I had graduated from university, and then I had come back and I had worked at a garden center in New Zealand, and there was an approach that I had developed or like learned about along the way. But that at the end of the day, we decided to call our staff daymakers because we wanted to put it in the job title when people are applying to work here, just what it was that was most important for them to deliver, which was we want everyone's experience to be a positive one, so that they leave humans feeling happier, better than when they came in having their day made. And I think that it speaks to a level of customer service bar is kind of low these days. It's like, wow, they said have a great day, and I really believed them, or like they saw that I was struggling and they just grabbed a card or they did something like that. But I have this here. It's like, oh, our mission is to make our space your happy place. And I was just really happy hearing about the story of that family you're talking about, and sparking the interest
Yeah,
in children and youth to be more curious about food, be more curious about growing. I mean, in itself, that is amazing. We're working with my son's school to do the entire school to have everyone have seeds and starting kits and to be able to grow and to learn to do that at home. But because the number of people, there was a survey that we were part of that was done by the industry a number of years ago, and it was whether it didn't matter what your age was, whether you were 20 or whether you were 90, and whether you were gardening or not. One thing that was uniform across that was that there was a strong belief that learning about food and growing and gardening was important to instill in the next generation,
yeah,
regardless of whether you were doing it.
yeah,
And I know that there's that we've talked about that you guys are doing that with that greenhouse and having that you have to plant the seed for tomorrow,
yeah,
because we talk about food literacy in schools and there being a void. And I have to commend, there's so many teachers and so many people within that system that are trying to create that. But at the end of the day, I commend parents, and myself having two young kids, and I've got some nasturtiums and some beans and some other things that he has growing at home. Is the timing right? No, but does
yeah,
he really care about that every day and watching that grow and getting the excitement of, oh my God, the seed popped up, and being able to spark that and being able to do that as a parent to connect kids
yeah,
to that, whether it's coming out to see that strawberries are growing this way, and to understand that they grow on the ground, they don't grow on trees, they don't just magically get produced in plastic punnets that are in the grocery store, and that there's a season to it. I
yeah,
still have probably one of the things that I'm most excited about, and also like slightly sad, is that when parents will send us like a video of like their kid going in the fridge, and then they'll see that, oh, we got strawberries, and they're like, oh, the grocery store strawberries. When are the good strawberries from Heeman's going to be available? Because just learning about the seasonality of like what can grow,
yeah,
what we can grow here, what we can't, why things are seasonally. Because there's no reason for people to not think about it that way if you didn't think critically. But if you go to the grocery store, you can get almost any produce you want, like 52 weeks of the year. There's very
yeah.
few exceptions. So, but being able to connect the people to that, and to be able to understand the labor that goes into it, the labor of love, the passion that goes into it, I think it's really encouraging.
It's true that I think for kids, though, inspiration is such a high level of importance when it comes to education, right? So a lot of the kids in schools, for instance, don't have gardens. They're not in
Yeah.
properties that don't have those kind of things. But the province has put in the curriculum now the requirement for schools to teach kids about food and nutrition and how to grow. But, you know, this person who was down there with her family is a teacher.
Are we having
And,
stand-up?
and she was saying that, you know, the part of the problem is getting the resources. You know, you can tell kids about growing food and you can have little things under a light in a classroom. Or it's like, to me, it's like, playing pickup hockey and then suddenly going to Maple Leaf Gardens. That's what happens
Yeah.
when you go to Heeman's, right? It's
Yeah.
totally there. They see the process, not just the end, but all of the process going through the different cycles and seasons and all that stuff. Like, it seems to me that this is what Heeman's gives. If somebody is happy that their children are learning about food in school, it's great. If you want them to totally get the bug and bug you to death, then take them to Heeman's, because that's what's going to happen, right? They're going to say, why don't we do this and why don't we do it? And if that's what you want for your kids, teaching them about all that stuff, it's one thing to have it in a school. It's totally better to have it someplace planted in their imagination and catching fire. And it seems to me that that's what Heeman's has done. Heeman's is where the puck is going to be. That's where the future is going to be. It's family oriented. It's around natural. It's all that beautiful stuff. And it just seems to me, you guys, you get that. You totally know it. And to bring something to you and then all of a sudden watch kids catch fire must be a
Yeah.
privilege for you.
It definitely is. One of my favorite sayings is that action that gets rewarded gets repeated, you know.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
And I think that that is 100% the case with, you know, kids having that success because, you know, one success with like a seed in a pot that you're talking about, it might not be the most ideal, but as long as the knowledge that they're being passed on is sound, that
Yeah.
the principles are sound, you know, which is a
Yeah.
concern that I have sometimes with, but if we're looking at that, it's able to show the scale that 1 plus 1
Yeah.
can equal more than two, and
Yeah.
to be able to I never really thought about it the way that you just alluded to, but it is true that, you know, you're playing stick hockey in the yard or like in the front yard, or if you're doing a 3-on-3 tournament and then you go to an NHL game, it's just a different scale.
Yeah.
And I know that for our scale, like there's obviously a much greater scale than what we're doing. We are just a single location family business, a family farm, um, uh, but it is really, I think, interesting to be able to kind of connect. This is what you're doing here in your backyard, but this is what you can do on a greater scale, and hopefully for us to be able to be that connection to rural life, to be that connection to agriculture, because I'm very aware that like there's not that many places where people can actually go and see
Yeah.
an
That's
active
right.
working farm and be able to kind of see that. You know, that the number of people are just like, can I just like sit on that John Deere Gator on the tractor or whatever? My dad could say it, or, you know, just because when we were growing up, that was just, you know,
What you
growing
did.
up on a farm
Yeah.
was just whatever. But like
Mhm.
my kids and like their friends or whatever, it's such a hit for them to
Yeah.
see, and for me and like our family, it's a very proud moment for us to just to kind of have that place in our community, because we live here, we work here. It's definitely very personal. I
Yeah.
think when you come out to Heeman's, you can see it's not corporate. It's not always like the flashiest in every area, but it's our
Yeah.
labor of love, and it's an
Yeah.
ongoing labor.
I encourage all parents to take their kids out more than once because the kids will never forget it. They'll see the possibilities, and that's what you want for your kids as parents. Will, thank you for doing this. Thank you for your friendship, for your support of the food bank. But I think especially for your thinking of the future and putting land and the possibility of agriculture and farming and food and flowers and those things at the center of this community life. That's where we need to go, and you're already there. And so we're going to depend on you a lot more in the future. Thank
Well,
you for
we're
this,
very
Will. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, and always appreciate the conversation. We're happy to be continuing to grow everything that we have here, and
Yeah.
obviously can't do it without the community support. So, yeah,
Thank you, Will.
thank you.